thwack.
What the?
I don't know.
Roll intro music.
Oh, did we start? Oh, we started. Okay. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to The Bible is Metal.
It has been a long month. We
Hot
missed you
month.
guys. A long, hot month.
Well, it's actually been kind of cold.
It really hasn't. It's been like 60.
Yeah, true. But it got really cold there for a minute. There was a couple days, at least over at my neck of the woods, it was like 20s.
Oh, wow.
Like low
Okay.
20s.
Well, I woke up in the morning. It would be like 37 when I got out to go to my car. But I don't know. That's pretty much it.
Yeah. I was kind of also playing off of the whole, like it's been a hot minute kind of thing.
It's been a hot minute, but it's been a cold minute.
Yeah, it's been a hot, but it's been a cold minute. And I'm still wearing shorts, actually.
I thought you were morally opposed to wearing pants.
I kind of am, but I'm not morally opposed to being warm when I'm extremely cold. So,
That's fair.
like,
Also, you guys can take that as you will.
yeah, take that as you will. I'm that kind of individual where I like to wear shorts most days out of the year, mostly just for the freedom aspect. Like, I feel like my legs aren't restricted.
That's fair.
Like, wearing pants, I feel...
You feel like your legs are restricted, so you want to go pantsless for the rest of your life?
Yeah, I just want to be a nudist, you know?
A naturalist.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Oh,
You have
sorry.
to respect their opinions.
Sorry, yes. I actually think there's a church somewhere. I forget where, but I remember watching it was like a show talking about like interesting groups or whatever, probably on like Vice or whatever. And it was a nudist church.
A nudist church.
Yes. Can you imagine your pastor standing up there, full John out, wagging back and forth as he's preaching?
I do not need that mental image. No, bad Levi.
But that's what it was.
That's
like
disgusting.
There's a church that is like that,
I mean, that's good for them.
and it makes no sense. Like I don't
No,
even know
it
if that's good
doesn't.
for them.
That scares me.
That
actually.
really scares me.
That
like,
that exists. I don't
yeah.
want to think about that.
yeah, I don't even know if they're still there. But I remember, like in
That
my teens.
mental image is going to be there for years.
Sorry for putting that in your ears.
Oh.
Anyway, Ben, how have you been?
Another
man?
explicit tag. Oh,
Oh yeah, another explicit tag.
gotta love the explicit tags.
Yeah.
I'm good. I'm
Yeah?
good. It's been a month, but it's been a good month. Like, honestly, I really can't complain. But at the same time, there's really nothing to be like excited about. It was just like a month.
You went to a couple shows recently,
I
though.
did go to a couple of shows. One of them will not be mentioned by name.
Because we already have the explicit tag.
We already have the explicit tag.
Yeah.
I just don't want my mom to be ashamed of me.
No, for sure. I get it. It's fine. But you went to see In Flames.
I went to see In Flames and Wage War, which
Yeah.
was really good.
Yeah.
So Wage War was they were like, so have you ever been you went to the venue, you went and saw Novelists and who else was there? Novelists and Ocean's 8 Alaska
Yeah.
at the venue. They totally gutted it and redid it. So it's actually like a proper venue with an actual stage and a good sound system now.
Nice.
It's really nice, actually. It was like $17 to go to see Wage War. And it's small enough. There's still that random pole in the middle of the venue.
Nice.
So when you're moshing, you have to be really, really careful.
To not hit the pole.
And
not other people.
And other people. I mean, you can hit the pole if you're really mad, I guess.
But that's what the people are there for. At this point in moshing, you want to hit the people, not the pole.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair. No, it was a really good time. Wage War was awesome. I went by myself because Levi bailed on me.
Whoa. Here. Listen, you told me like the day of.
No, I told you like a week before.
A week? What for the wage war?
I'm going to pull out the text.
No way.
And I'm going to post it on the Facebook page.
No way.
Just to shame you.
No. You told me like, hey, bro, I'm going to a concert tonight. Like, do you want to go? Like, I know it's super last. You even said you're like, I know it's super last minute. I'm like, yeah. It would have been nice to know.
I sent out a group text to you and Reed and Ruben asking if you guys wanted to go see Wage War.
Oh, was that one?
Yes. That was that one.
Okay,
yeah,
maybe you're
Levi.
right. Maybe you're right.
Levi.
Dang it. Okay.
Still going on the Facebook page.
Yeah, go ahead.
You deserve to be shamed.
I do deserve the shame. Gosh, I'm sad I missed him too.
It was good.
I wish I would have planned for that.
Well, the problem is I missed the first two. So it was bad because the first, they had to push the show. I think they were trying to beat the storm out. It was that one where they had like that giant rainstorm come in and then it was like 5 degrees for a week, like super, super cold.
Yeah.
And they're just trying to beat the storm out. So they pushed the concert back by an hour, then told us on the Facebook page 3 hours before the concert. So I was still up in Logan.
Yeah.
Like I was up in Logan helping my parents with their, my grandparents passed away last year and we've taken our time cleaning their storage unit out. So I was picking up some tools that I wanted and some stuff. So I busted it back down here. I dropped off everything at my wife's my in-laws' house down in Sandy. And then I had to drive back. So by the time I got there, I was an hour late. I had missed the first two bands, which I was really sad about because it was Dayseeker and Polaris, both of which are like up there for me. Like I really, really like them a lot, especially Dayseeker. But I still got to see like Moths to Flames, which was aggressively okay. And then Wage War, which was awesome.
Aggressively okay.
He's one of those guys where, remember that local band that opened for Era?
Oh yeah.
He's just like that. He's just their lead singer. It's like he's kind of funny sometimes.
Yeah.
And the rest of the time he's just like
aggressively okay.
Aggressively vulgar for no reason.
Yeah,
like,
true.
It's like, come on, man. Like
was he the one that was like every 2 seconds, like in order to get the crowd actually pumped up, he would say, "Yeah, so and so's in the house. Give him a hand."
No, it wasn't annoying. He just was like. It's like, look, if you're going to use like the F-bomb, timing is everything. Especially if you're using it for humor, which some people will be horrified that I find it funny if you use it right, but whatever, I'm broken.
Oh, amen.
But he just was like, it gets old after a while. Yeah. It's like, especially when you're trying to like rile people up, but it's really just not funny and you're not really making anyone mad either. Which is half the reason you go to a metal concert. It's like, make me angry. Let's go punch each other. Right?
Yeah, right.
No, but it's the music. They're okay. Like as a band, they're another one of those bands where like, I'm not really sure why you're famous. Like you're fine.
This is fine.
You're fine. That's probably the best way I can describe it. Is like they're fine. They're not good. There's nothing about them that makes them stand out to me.
Gotcha.
At all. So Wage War was really good though. Yeah. And then I went and saw In Flames, and Red opened for In Flames, and Red's my favorite. I love Red. I grew up listening to like the Till We Have Faces album, which is basically like precursor. It's almost like Gent. Like it's really heavy. I really,
I could never get into Red. I don't know why. I feel like that's a sin, but like I could never get into Red.
As a Christian metalhead, you're not allowed to dislike Red.
It's not that I dislike them. I find merit in their music. So I can put it that way.
Basically, how you see Red is how I see Atreyu.
Okay, that's fair.
Everyone thinks they're popular.
That's
and
fair.
Like, I really don't get it.
That's totally fair.
Yeah.
Like I dig like 2 albums from Atreyu, but the rest of them I'm just like meh.
They're I mean, like Red, the only reason I like Red so much, all their latest stuff has just kind of been bad. It's their first 3 albums. Like they just like End of Silence, Innocence and Instinct, and then Until We Have Faces, their first 3.
Yeah.
There's 1, 2, 3, bam, bam, just really just awesome albums. And I loved them so much. I listened to them over and over and over again. I still have them somewhere. I need to find them. I haven't actually listened to a CD in years.
Do you ever feel like you get kind of caught in the past of a band that anything new they come out with, it's just not the same, and you end up not liking it because it's not the same?
That's honestly why. I mean, especially because like Until We Have Faces, like End of Silence was good, was really good, and they like their most famous song. Like, have you ever heard of the song? Wow, it's their most famous song, and I can't even remember the title of it. Breathe Into Me. Like, everyone's heard that song, right? Yeah. Like, and it's a great song, and it was on their first album. It is still their most played album on Spotify. Like, it's just they can't. The problem is Red is one of those bands where their older stuff is still carrying them as a band because their new stuff just isn't as good.
Yeah, yeah. Gosh, what band? What band? I feel like there's a band that is exactly like that for me. Oh, Lamb of God.
Oh,
I feel like Lamb of God, their older stuff was great. It was banging. It was hardcore. It was the kind of stuff that I just, as an angsty teen, just got off on. And then as the years progressed, it either got like way too blasphemous, which is the point of Lamb of God, I guess.
right.
But
I mean, their first band name was
Burn the Priest. Yeah,
right?
yeah. So, but like, I don't know. Just I felt like their newest stuff just didn't carry well, you know.
Yeah.
But like their older stuff was just so good.
Right. I mean, my dad actually brought that up. He said because my dad loves Rush. Like that's his favorite. He loves Rush, and I like Rush too. I think they're great.
Yeah.
But we and like I talked to him like in all of his favorite albums are ones that came out in, the 80s when he was in high school. Mm-hmm. But then you actually listen to their new stuff and it's like the stuff that came out in the 80s was objectively better. Like I bought him or my little brother bought him an album. I think it was Clockwork Angels when that came out in like 2012. Mm-hmm. And it just like I asked him what he thought of it, and he goes, honestly, just kind of sucks. Like they're all the hash is getting to them in their old age, and they're just kind of ethereal and weird, and their music just isn't as good.
Oh,
I think there are a lot of bands that are like that.
Yeah,
that just they explode onto a scene, and then they can't maintain that momentum at all.
Yeah, one band I felt like has definitely like hit it hard with just about every single album they've pumped out is Slipknot.
I've never been a fan of Slipknot.
I have been a fan of Slipknot like since the first album.
Joey Jordison.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing is I'll appreciate it, and I think it's cool. But...
I cannot name an album of theirs that I disliked. Even the new one. It's
always
it's
a good
still
thing.
And that's the thing. I feel like Slipknot, they're still Slipknot. They didn't really go outside they didn't experiment much, if I could put it that way. They've always kind of like been Slipknot, and
right.
I appreciate that. Same thing with As I Lay Dying. Every time As I Lay Dying comes out, it's like it's As I Lay Dying,
and it's like this is so good.
Yeah, this is still so good.
I'm
like,
still listening to Shaped by Fire.
Yeah,
every single day. It's so good.
Like don't change the formula, man. It works. Like, and I feel like bands that do that, like they stick around for the long run.
Right, and it's like, and that's one of the things about Red. I think that was kind of a bummer. Was their first three albums were like a punch to the gut. They were just they're heavy. They hit hard. The songs were really good and memorable and like catchy. And then their new stuff, they're kind of experimenting with like kind of like this groove metal-y, like kind of Five Finger Death Punch sound. It's just like
okay.
It's just it doesn't sound like Red, and it's not the stuff I fell in love with when I was in middle school. Like,
yeah. And we've talked about this before. How bands get shocked that their fans like aren't their fans anymore because of their new stuff. It's like, well, because I liked your old stuff and I liked what you did then, and then you changed up the formula. Like, don't blame me for not liking your new formula.
Right.
And I feel like so many bands fall that way. They're like, oh, we want to experiment, and I could appreciate musicians wanting to experiment, absolutely. But like, I feel like when you change up the formula too much, you're no longer the band that people fell in love with. If you change up the formula too much, is my opinion.
Yeah, like a really good one. I don't know if you listen, like how RXD you are, but like Asking Alexandria. Have you ever listened?
No, I wasn't into Asking Alexandria.
I mean, I was never really that much into it. I mean, some of their songs actually I think are pretty cool. Like I think that it's fun to listen to and stuff. But like, there's another one where their lead singer is such a toxic, terrible person that I hate the band. Like there's some where it's like there are very few bands where it's like I generally dislike most metal musicians. Like they're generally pretty cocky. They're generally kind of annoying, especially the ones that got big.
Yeah.
Like his Asking Alexandria is huge. Like a lot of people know who they are, and he's just like, I went to go see the 10 Years in the Black tour, which had like, I had a bunch of stuff before it that was just awesome. Like Upon a Burning Body, Born of Osiris, I See Stars. Like there's After the Burial was there. They were really good. And then Asking Alexandria, the dude was drunk. Like he comes on, it was like a classic like 80s metal actor. He's drunk. He's being a little princess about everything. And like totally slamming on everyone and like making super inappropriate jokes about like his
boy.
bandmates' wives, and it's just like because all of them in their 30s by now, right?
Yeah.
Like, you can't really do this bad boy mentality anymore because it's like, dude, your guitarist has a wife and a 4-year-old daughter. Like, you can't make these jokes anymore. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Bands like that where it's like they crashed and burned hard. And
Yep.
their new stuff is like this pop. It sounds like I don't even know what to classify it as. It's like that weird like indie rock, but it's not kind of electronic garbage. Like it doesn't even sound like you can't classify it. Not because it is
Uniquely good.
It is you can't classify it just because it's like it doesn't do anything right. So
Lovely.
yeah. Anyway, so yeah, I went to go see shows. Shows were fun.
Mm-hmm.
We're probably gonna go see the As I Lay Dying show. I really, really want to go. Don't get me wrong. I may be in England, which is actually a legitimate excuse.
Dang. Yeah, that's
I may
not
be
your
out of
fault.
the country. So
Dang.
yeah.
I'll definitely be going.
Yeah. Oh, that one will be sweet. So
Yeah.
I think. Have you ever listened to much After the Burial?
No.
You will like After the Burial.
Okay.
The dude's a metronome.
Oh, I love it.
It's like deathcore of the highest. It's good stuff.
Yeah.
It's good stuff.
Awesome.
So we'll probably go to that. But I think that's the only one coming. Oh, and then Killswitch Engage and
Yep.
August Burns Red.
Yep. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm so
Yes.
excited.
That's gonna be so good.
Oh, so good.
Yeah.
Yep.
Anyway, yeah. So what have you been listening to?
I've been listening to all that stuff, man. So like you, I'm still digging. I'm digging Signal Fire still from Killswitch Engage. I'm still rocking out to the new As I Lay Dying album. It's great. I've been listening to a lot of Wage War as well. I feel like I have this playlist, this metal playlist on my Google Play Music account.
Right.
And it's kind of like, oh, every time I pick up like a new like song or band or whatever, I kind of just throw them on there.
Right.
You know, or a lot of the stuff you'll send me, I'll just kind of throw it on there.
Right.
I've been rocking out a lot to Woven War.
Oh, Woven War.
Yeah.
So basically, just As I Lay Dying of any form.
Yes,
what
yes.
you've been
As I Lay
listening to.
Dying of any form. Yeah, Woven War is pretty sick. What was at the Gate too?
Oh wow, really?
Yep,
that's
I've
not-
been enjoying their new album.
It's
which
good
is-
stuff.
It is.
It's a little
really good.
different. It's kind of this more like arena, ethereal, like super big sounding rock.
Yeah.
I don't know how else to describe
Yeah.
it. It's good.
That's
I love
accurate.
It. I think it's great.
What's
But-
funny though is for a minute there, I mistaked a Woven War song for a what was it, the Gate song?
It's not necessarily a bad thing.
It's not. It's not. I mean, it's because the two songs are right next to each other
Right.
in the lineup or on the playlist, and sometimes I just play the playlist through and I don't shuffle. But that song comes on, I'm like, oh yeah, this is Wolves at the Gate, and it's great. And then I look at the song and I'm like, oh wait a minute, this is Woven War. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's awesome.
Yeah. So yeah,
Sweet.
mostly just that. And then I feel like from time to time, I got to get back to the good old stuff.
The good old stuff.
And we went on a trip to Moab recently.
Oh, nice.
And-
Moab's cool, by the way. Been
Yeah,
there.
we went to the
Moab's
Arches
really
National
cool.
Park, and it was amazing.
Oh, it's amazing. Yeah.
Like, yeah. But on our way there, we listened to a lot of Weird Al Yankovic.
Oh yeah. No,
Yeah.
that's where it's at.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing: is I don't know if it's a metalhead thing, but every metalhead I've met like loves like spoof bands like that.
Yep.
Like Weird Al, System of a Down,
Yep.
Glory, Hammered, all those weird Dragon Force because they're just self-aware.
Yep.
They're so weird.
Yep. Yeah. And I don't know what it is about Weird Al, but I love that man and everything he's made.
I love Weird Al so much. I when I was in middle school, I had like a weird obsession with Weird Al for a while. I listened to everything he put out. I know.
My, this Iranican guy. Maybe Vader someday later, but now he's just a small fry.
Left his home and kissed his mama goodbye, saying so I'm gonna be a Jedi. I also
Someday
know
I'm gonna be a
I know the
Jedi.
entirety of White and Nerdy.
Yes, I do too. Oh,
Pants in my pocket, I must protect my ergonomic keyboard never leaves me bored. Someone a lot of deals on Scribe Media. I add at Wikipedia. The Holy Grail. I can try it now and have your ROTF. LOL. I know the entire thing from
Yep.
start to finish.
Got a business doing websites.
Got my friends need some code. Who do they call?
I do HTML for them all. Even make a homepage for my dog. Yo, I got myself a fanny pack. They were having a sale down at the Gap.
Spend my nights
With a rolled up bubble wrap. Pop, pop, hope no one sees me. Get freaky.
Because I am. I
Yep.
am a programming nerd. I'm white as a sheet. That's my anthem, man.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful.
Anyway, yeah, cool.
So now that we've burned 20 minutes. Okay.
Yeah, that's my... Don't worry, it's not going to blow up again.
Okay. I'm a little scared. It's black.
There's like a 90% chance it won't blow up again. You'll probably be fine.
Okay. And, you want to explain what happened?
So my hot water heater, sometimes the pilot doesn't catch right away. So you'll get this cloud of gas that'll build up, and then it'll light, and you get this poof. And it's really scary when it happens for the first time, but after a while, I get used to it.
That makes me feel very great that it's like a foot away from me.
I really should get that looked at, but
should get that looked at, Ben.
Yeah.
Anyway, so now that we've successfully burned 20 minutes in this podcast, let's get to the meat and potatoes of this episode.
Yes.
So,
should we give a recap, do you think?
I think we probably don't need to, but
Okay.
you know what? Why not?
I mean, here's what I'm thinking. Is a recap, but from the perspective of Pharaoh.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
So imagine Pharaoh's long-lost brother or nephew or uncle. I don't know. We don't know. We're probably related by adoption, right? Comes in and goes, hey, all your slave people, I'm going to take them and we're going to leave. Sound good? Cool? Yeah?
Yeah.
And then Pharaoh's like, no, absolutely not. But then Moses is like, no, you don't understand. God's telling you, you got to let these people go.
Mm-hmm.
You've been oppressing them for far too long. You've been murdering them. You've been mistreating them horribly. Think like transatlantic slave trade. Like, this isn't just the Egyptians were mean to the Israelites. Like, there was genocide committed. There was the Egyptians were horrible to the Israelites, right?
Yeah.
And so Pharaoh's like, no.
Nah, brah.
He's like, who is this puny God of the slave people? Remember, Pharaoh thinks he was God.
Yep.
And so Moses is like, okay. So God starts small, and then slowly over time ramps up to, this last one, literally any one by one will dismantle these gods in the Egyptian pantheon. And he finally makes it to Ra, the sun god, by blacking out Egypt for, was it 3 days?
I think we determined it was like a 3 day or a week. Or
3 day to a week, something like that. He blacked out the sun for an extended period of time.
Black hole sun.
With the express purpose of God showing, I am so much stronger than these gods. But we're finally to this point where we're like, God still hasn't addressed the highest god in the Egyptian pantheon, which is Pharaoh himself. And that's kind of what today is going to be about. We want to address just this one plague and Pharaoh's heart, because it's kind of, Pharaoh's heart will also be an additional episode where we'll kind of go over like the change in Pharaoh and why that was important and stuff.
Yeah.
But primarily we want to address like I don't know. You kind of get what I'm getting at.
Yeah. So like today we're focusing in on the final plague of the Exodus story. The well-known story of like all these plagues that are hitting Egypt, and we spent a lot of time honing in on how those plagues were like direct attacks against the Egyptian pantheon, the Egyptian gods that were specifically responsible for those areas of the Egyptian life. Well, now here we come now to the final one, the biggin, if I could put it that way.
Right.
Everybody in Egypt is looking to their last and final powerful, air quote, god, Pharaoh. And he's kind of the last standing god that hasn't quite been dismantled yet. He's still sitting on his throne in Egypt, technically. Right. So this last plague is kind of that attack. It's the final blow. And it will be the final plague that will cause Pharaoh to be like, okay, get out of here.
Yeah. Like,
you have won, kind of thing. And that, of course, is the death of the firstborn of all of Egypt.
Right. And so to start, I suggest that while I pull it up, trying to nonchalantly admit that I don't actually have it pulled up yet, we're going to go ahead and read parts of it, just so that we can kind of get the basic idea of what the Bible actually says, right? And not just so that you guys can hear. It's like, okay, here's what the Bible says. You aren't hearing it secondhand; you're hearing it right away. So I'll go ahead and start. If you want to go ahead and pick up after chapter 11, I will I will read chapter 11. It's only 9 verses, so.
Okay.
So the Lord said to Moses, I will bring one more plague on Pharaoh and on Egypt. After that, he will let you go from here, and when he does, he will drive you out completely. Tell the people that the men and women are to ask their neighbors for articles of silver and gold. The Lord made the Egyptians favorably disposed towards the people, and Moses himself was highly regarded in Egypt by Pharaoh's officials and by the people. This is important.
Mm-hmm.
So Moses said, this is what the Lord says. About midnight, I will go throughout Egypt. Every firstborn son in Egypt will die, from the firstborn son of Pharaoh, who sits on the throne, to the firstborn son of the female slave who is at her handmill, and all the firstborn of the cattle as well. There will be loud wailing throughout Egypt, worse than there has ever been or will ever be again. But among the Israelites, not a dog will bark at any person or animal. And you will know that the Lord makes a distinction between Egypt and Israel. All these officials of yours will come to me, bowing down before me and saying, go, you and all the people who follow you, and after that I will leave. Then Moses, hot with anger, left Pharaoh. So Moses is mad.
Yep.
You know, he's like, okay, you didn't listen, so listen up. I know you aren't going to, but this is going to happen whether you want it to or not now.
Yeah. And you imagine Moses at that point, he's not thrilled that this has to happen. Mm-hmm. But of course, this has to happen. Like this will be the final thing that finally gets the Pharaoh to that point of letting them go. Mm-hmm. You know, like Ben said, like his heart finally got to the point of, all right, I've lost this battle, go now. Mm-hmm. You know. And then to pick up in chapter 12, like after that, it says in verse 12, it says, for I will pass through the land of Egypt that night, and I will strike all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both man and beast, and on all gods of Egypt I will execute judgment. I am the Lord. And so that right there kind of just pretty much verifies everything we've been doing for the past few episodes. It says, and all the gods of Egypt I will execute judgment. I am the Lord.
Yeah, and the last one left is Pharaoh himself.
Yep.
I will execute judgment on the final god of Egypt, which is Pharaoh, you know.
Yeah.
And then his son would become the next successor. So I don't know if that was like an actual parallel that needs to be made, but it's just an interesting note.
Yeah, yeah. And I'll make a parallel on that later.
Right.
But so that's like the point. So now let's get into the story. So prior to the plague actually happening, we have an institution of what's called the Passover. You know, many people know what the Passover is, but for those of you that don't know, the Passover is a Jewish festival that essentially is it's a time where they remember this specific event in their nation's history. It was the time that God had finally released them from their captivity. And this was to be the thing that they remembered and celebrated that by. And there was all kinds of things that were added into this festival to kind of, they were little symbols of things that they did and said, oh, this is to remember the bitter times that we had. This was to remember, you know, the haste that we had to leave Egypt. For example, they would bake unleavened bread, mostly because God told them, Moses told them, don't put leaven in your bread because you don't have time for it to rise. You're leaving. Like this plague is going to be certain. You're getting out of here, so we're going to eat unleavened bread. And then there were some other symbols as well in the Passover. But essentially, this is the institution of God saying to his people, do this once a year in remembrance of this exact event.
Right.
And that's a key thing. It's a commemoration of what God did to free the Israelites. That's what the Passover is. And a part of the Passover is taking a lamb without blemish, you know, perfect lamb. It doesn't have a scar on it, a bruise on it. It's a perfect little tot. And they are to slit its throat, pour the blood into a bowl, take a little bush.
Is it a branch of hyssop?
Yeah, take a branch of hyssop, and they are to paint it over the doorpost of their homes in Goshen. And not just the top. Some people think it's just the top. No, it's over the entire door, from the bottom left to the top, over to the right, and down to the bottom right. Like it's a full door covering kind of a thing. And that's what the blood was meant to symbolize. It was meant to cover this home. This was like a blood tarp, if I could put it that way. It's covering this home.
And that kind of like, do you want to kind of dive into? I don't know if animal sacrifice had kind of been addressed at this point, or this is like the first time this is like really. No, Cain and Abel actually is. I think.
Yeah.
But the purpose of this is like this house Like the door, like I think like the door, darken the doorstep, or like the entryway of a house, like has always kind of had like this a lot of symbolic nature to it, you know. And then what they're doing is telling it's like the blood, like a sacrificial blood is covering this home.
Yes.
You know.
Yeah.
And much in the way that, and Levi's going to kind of get into this a little bit later, but much in the way that Jesus died for us.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this is kind of a precursor to a lot of that.
Absolutely. So. There is so much symbolism in this story. It's not even funny. Like it. Yeah. We'll get into that. But yeah, so like picture the scene. They sacrifice this lamb. They cover the doorpost with the blood, and this was widely known. This wasn't just something that the Israelites knew about. The Egyptians knew about this too. Moses told Pharaoh. He told the officials. Said, you know, this is what's going to happen, and the mandate actually went out. The Egyptians knew about this potential of being able to do this, but they didn't do it. They didn't. Of course, were like, oh, you know, this ain't going to happen.
And it's like, yeah, we can block out the sun, but he can't kill everyone.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if it was just extreme faith in Pharaoh. They're like, oh, Pharaoh's stronger. He'll defeat the puny slave god of the slave people. You know? Like, there's really no explanation, but what we do know is the Egyptians just didn't.
They just didn't follow suit.
Yep. You know?
And so comes that faithful night when Santa Claus, just kidding.
Santa Claus came and murdered your family.
Exactly.
No, God came and murdered your family, which is untrue.
So this is usually the point to where I like to point out that this is one of the places where the Grim Reaper actually appears in the scriptures. It's essentially the death angel. It is the messenger of death, if we could put it that way. The angel that comes through, the angel of the Lord, as it said, comes through and goes to all the homes in Egypt and in Goshen and all in the land. And if it finds the blood, if it finds the sacrifice, it passes over the home. And that's why it's called Passover, because the death angel passed over the home that that blood was found on it. But any home that was not found with the blood on it, the death angel went into the home and took the life of the firstborn child, be it the firstborn son, firstborn daughter.
I think it explicitly says firstborn son.
Oh, does it say firstborn son?
Double check. I just want to make sure we're giving you the proper information.
Yeah, for sure.
Firstborn son.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, firstborn son.
That might be the word for child. Like, it might be either. But
I think firstborn son has a lot more significance, though, in this culture specifically.
right. I mean, because this entire plague right now kind of drips of symbolism as a whole.
It does.
It might be the firstborn son because they're the heir. They're the one who will inherit.
Yeah.
And up until this point, you know, they would inherit the slaves and continue to treat them in the same way.
Yeah, pretty much.
And that's, I don't know. It seems dark.
Yeah.
And this might be another one of those things where it's like, we can't make this not seem. It's like the plague with Uzzah, right? It's like we can't, in our day and age, because our lens is so different.
Yep.
We can't make this not seem weird.
Yeah.
And to a point, anyway. Like I definitely think justice was done because of the injustice committed on the Hebrews by the Egyptians. Even though that justice was bloody.
Yeah.
You know. So.
Though I don't entirely know how bloody it was.
I'm saying bloody as an overarching term for a lot of people dying.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I'm not so sure the death angel like took the corpse and pinned it up against the wall or something.
No. Well, I don't think. Just the death would be scary enough. Where it's like, can you imagine waking up and everyone had a child who just died?
Yeah,
like that's somehow more scary than having their like corpse hung on a wall or something.
Yeah, yeah. Like seriously, it said every single home, every single home of the Egyptians had this happen. At least every home that had a firstborn son, like that son is gone, that son is dead, and my neighbor to my left, my neighbor to my right, my home, everybody. And like it says in the chapter, there will be loud wailing, and there was, and this loud wailing also made its way to Pharaoh's house. And the significance, and we've kind of brought this up in short, but the significance of the death of the firstborn is that the firstborn son was to inherit everything from their family. You know, the father was to pass everything on to the firstborn, like the larger portion, if not the largest portion of, you know, the family's wealth, the family's flocks and livestock and land and all that stuff was to go to the firstborn, and the firstborn was to inherit all of that. You know, and today we have an idea of inheritance, but it's not nearly the same idea of inheritance as back in those days. Back in those days, like you had an heir, and it was very important that you had an heir.
Well, and you became the patriarch of the family, right? Like, and it became much more because your family was like, it was your community. It was, you know, your brothers were the people you would literally fight with. You'd go hunting. Like your life was spent with your family. Like, it's much different now because, I mean, our families are very fragmented, and I mean, it's like, and I still love my family, but I'm, it's not like, you know, like when my dad passes away, you know, God forbid, 30 years from now.
Yeah.
Like, I would would want to make sure that, like, it's not like my older brother is going to get all of his stuff and all of a sudden become the Stewart patriarch or whatever, right?
Yeah.
It's just not the same. It's another one of those things that just, I don't think we can really explain it in a way that makes sense because it's so different than by the way that we do things now.
Yeah.
The things that we hold important now.
Yeah, and that's a good way of putting it. Like, it's the firstborn son becomes the new head of the family, the new patriarch, the new landowner, the new wealth owner, everything. Like, he gains everything, and he calls the shots from there. And when God sent his messenger to take the life of all of those heirs, all of those heads of the family, all of those people that would have stood in their father's stead, you know, especially Pharaoh's son himself. Like, he would be the next god to Egypt, basically. And this act, this last plague that God brought on them was basically saying no to your dynasty. You know, your dynasty ends here pretty much.
Right.
And in a real way, he ended the dynasty of Pharaoh. Like, you know, that Pharaoh specifically.
Right.
Like, you know, his kingdom is done kind of thing because his firstborn is now gone. Like, there's so much weight to that.
Right.
That, like, you're right. How on earth can we convey that in a manner that makes sense today? You know?
And it's like, and I can't, because the reality is, it's like, I mean, I think as a parent, I would never be able to speak for someone who's a parent. I can't say, oh, your life is more important than your kids or something like that.
Yeah.
But there's so much value in being able to give, and I think there still is today to some extent, but like the value in being able for your family to continue, your legacy to continue and stuff is like that's important now. But back in the day, that was everything. You know?
Yeah.
Your legacy, your name, your possessions, that was it, you know?
Yep.
Especially it's like when your possessions are like cattle.
Yeah. Livestock.
And it's like,
land.
and that's pretty much it, you know? And like, maybe you have like gold and jewels and precious stones, but like in the day, because like nowadays we have more stuff than I think we've ever had in human history, right?
Yeah.
But back in the day, it was your name, it was your family, it was your reputation, it was your honor, and God took that away.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah. To the highest degree too. Like man, I keep saying it, but like there's so much weight to this plague that's why it deserves its own episode. But man, right. I want to convey it, but I feel like I can't, you know,
right.
Like yeah. So I'll stop trying to beat that dead horse to say that it's meaningful. It really is, but man,
Right.
it's a hefty one.
Right.
But along those lines, so like the death of the firstborn is another one of the things in this plague. Like we've already said, this is a very symbolic plague, and there's a lot that goes into this, like future thinking, and like this is definitely a part of like the grand picture of God's story. Clearly because he instituted the Passover for the Israelites to, remember every single year for the rest of their lives, even to today. Like there are people that celebrate the Passover, and it's a time to remember when God rescued them as a nomadic nation from enslavement.
Right.
And that is a direct correlation, as Ben said, to what Jesus did on the cross when he died for our sin and took us from our position of slavery to sin to freedom in Christ. And oddly enough, it was Christ's blood that was put on the doorpost, that was put as a covering for us. Like it was Christ's sacrifice that pretty much has the death angel pass over us in that sense. Right. Not in the same sense of death as in like physical death. Clearly we all still physically die, but a whole different type of death that we don't experience in this life. It's the spiritual death, and Jesus has saved us from that spiritual death. You know what I'm saying?
Right. I mean, I think it's really interesting to see that correlation. I mean, I think that correlation goes a lot deeper.
Oh yeah.
If you actually want to look into it, because it's like the people who listened but did not hear and did not accept that sacrifice, right? Did not respond to that sacrifice, died. They experienced the death.
Yeah.
And the people who believed that what God was saying was true,
Mm-hmm.
And this might be a good kind of way to kind of segue into what happens after we die. I mean, I don't know if it's a really good can of worms to open in this one, because the truth is I don't even really know what I believe. Mm-hmm. Like, I have a hard time believing that if you don't accept God, he will actively throw you into eternal torment. Mm. I think eternal separation from God is being trapped. Like, imagine the world entirely corrupt by humanity's sinful nature with no goodness or justice.
I think we've had this. We've had this conversation before, like on the podcast before.
Right, but I'm very, very, very intentionally trying to stay away from. It's like separation from God, whatever that looks like.
Yeah.
Like, we're saved from the separation of God. We're welcome in God's presence because we have been covered. We have put the blood of the Lamb of God, Jesus Christ, honored. That sounds so stupid.
Huh.
And Sunday school. It's like, we put the blood of Jesus on the door of our hearts.
On the door of our hearts.
That's dumb. But it's true, and I hate it.
It's so cheese balls.
I hate it for it.
It's so Sunday cheese balls.
It's true. Because it's so stupid. It's such a dumb phrase, but like,
I wouldn't call it stupid. It's cheese balls.
It's cheesy. It's so cheesy and corny and overused to the point that it no longer has its meaning. But like,
yeah.
But my point being, I don't think it's stupid. I think the fact that it's lost its meaning is stupid.
Yeah, true.
I think that the truth is like, if we look at that and we say, it's like, I should be dead. Mm-hmm. By all regards, I should experience this eternal separation from God.
Yeah,
because I'm not welcome in his presence because of my sin.
Yeah,
and then he covers that.
Yeah, to try and redeem the Sunday schoolness of that. Like, think of the whole, like, okay, like, let's go back to the scene of, okay, we have to kill this lamb, we have to wipe the blood on the doorpost, and then we have to get in the house. That was another part of it. You have to stay in the house. Like, you're not allowed to go outside at night. The death angel will kill you, like, stay in the house kind of thing. And in a real way, that is our life. Mm-hmm. And that is kind of like the gospel wrapped in a, simplistic package. Mm-hmm. Death is coming. The death angel is coming. And whether or not you have entered the house and put the blood on the doorpost will determine whether or not you escape that death. You know what I mean?
Right.
And that's like the gospel in a nutshell. It's like, Jesus is the way. Jesus is the house, pretty much. He's the house with the blood covering. Mm-hmm. And if you're not in the house, you're going to experience death, or you're going to die. Like, the death angel's coming, and you're going to be,
your death will be final.
Yeah, it'll be final.
Like, there's no redemption, there's no resurrection.
Yeah.
Like, your death here on earth. And I think the death I don't want to get too metaphysical here.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, but I definitely think it's like when sin was introduced and death was introduced into the world, that death was it.
Yeah.
You will die. If you want your God, you will live your life on earth as your God, and then you will die, and that's it.
Yeah.
If you want redemption and freedom to live with Christ for eternity, right? Like, that's when, I don't know. I don't want to, I still trying to, like, land the plan on where, what I really believe about that. Because of the character of God, I can't justify looking at him as like, oh, well, you didn't do what I said, so I'm going to actively toss you into a volcano, right? Mm-hmm. Like a virgin sacrifice or whatever. But yeah, so it's like, 'cause that doesn't, like, God has very clearly shown that he is not that way. To a point.
Well, we'll have to have another episode on that because, clearly it's a can of worms.
It's a big can of worms.
That
so
will
we're
make
not,
this episode much longer than it needs to be.
We're not going to go down that path too far.
But no, I get what you're saying. Like
Right.
it. I guess another part of bringing that in is that this plague was so serious because it wasn't the first plague to actually kill people, because other plagues did, but this was the first plague to kill a meaningful part of the population, a very meaningful part.
And it was one that explicitly targeted human beings.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, like the other ones, it was happenstance. It's like, oh, if you were in the field when the hail was coming down,
You'd probably die.
you're going to get pelted and die.
Yeah.
But it wasn't geared towards, if you're in the field, I'm going to hit you.
I'm just going to sit there with a hailstone.
Yeah. I'm going to get you, but this is the first plague where it was legitimately targeted at the firstborn of the household.
Right.
Like it was targeted at people. And
It was targeted at the lives of people. And then, I mean, do you want to go like really metaphysical and go like, what if we think that we hold our lives as our gods?
No.
I don't want to go down there.
No. No.
No.
Different direction. Let's take a different direction.
Let's take a different direction. Okay. So going back to the whole idea with this being a parallel of what Jesus did later, the difference is he defeated sin. He defeated our own jealous human nature that causes us to cheat and steal and lie and hurt one another. That's what we're slaves to.
Yep.
We're slaves to our own fleshly desires that we will trample each other to get. And then, God frees us from that.
That's such a good way of putting it, that we will trample each other to get.
Right.
Like, that's so real.
Well, I mean,
how often do we destroy one another just to get what we want?
Right. I mean, if you actually look at the evil in the world, right, or the bad things that happen, it's never. I mean, it's rarely. Sometimes there's an act of, like, if someone gets zapped by lightning or gets killed in a hurricane or something.
Yeah, like
that.
natural disasters.
Natural disasters.
Like, that's a different kind of.
Welcome to physics.
Yeah.
By the coast, I guess. Like,
yeah.
I don't know.
At that point, we're not mourning at humanity, and we don't think, oh man, where's humanity gone? It's more like, oh, the earth just decided to attack you.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, and I personally think natural disasters are just a fortunate consequence of living somewhere where physics happens. But yeah, I mean,
true.
I mean, I'm definitely not one of those ones where it's like God throws hurricanes at us because the gays or whatever. Like, I think that's patently absurd and ridiculous. But anyway,
real quick on that.
Uh-oh.
No.
Okay.
Not uh-oh.
I was about to hit you.
No, totally not. But like, I think it's interesting that, like, natural disasters, they happen everywhere.
Yeah.
They happen, whether or not it's the gay community or not. Like, think of all the tsunamis that happen, all the earthquakes that happen, all of the, the wildfires that happen. They happen in places where there's conservative Christians. It happens in the Bible Belt.
It's completely agnostic.
Yeah.
Ironically, hurricanes hit the Bible Belt more than anywhere else.
Exactly.
Because they decided, hey, I'm going to live by the ocean.
Yeah. So natural disasters are
just saying. I'm not saying it's your fault if you get hurt in a natural disaster. That's not what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
So please don't take it that way. I'm sorry if I offended you.
I think that's the point of it, is that natural disasters are the natural order's way of crumbling ever since the sin of Adam, though.
Right.
Like there is that part. Like once the original sin happened, like Romans tells us this, that the creation itself has been crumbling and has been losing. Cracks have been showing in it because of sin in the world.
Right.
Not just the corruption of man, but like what sin did to the cosmos. Like sin had a real effect on the cosmos.
Because I don't want to go too far down this rabbit hole particularly, but I mean, this reminds me of the conversation we had in the cafe a couple weeks ago. We're kind of talking about the difference between God actively keeping the universe going by his hand versus, because I'm an engineer and I like thinking of it this way, God making a well-designed machine that runs on its own, like, and that's, I think there's some truth to the fact that it's like the universe, like all things run by God's hand a little bit. And when we sinned and we said, we can do this ourselves, he politely kind of took a step back, and our physical universe will crumble without God, and I don't know, this starts to sound like, oh, it's like the Star Wars and the Force and it holds the universe together. It's like, I don't want to go down that road.
Or like
an
open theistic type of view, which
right.
which I don't think that's the view that you're taking.
We don't want to go, there's a lot of theology here, so we have to be really careful to not
definitely.
people.
So to kind of wrap things back around, so another interesting part about the whole death of the firstborn thing is that this, again, is another parallel. As we said, it's a parallel of Christ and what he has done. But the interesting part is the Bible actually calls Jesus the firstborn of the Father.
Right.
That Jesus, Colossians chapter 1, verse 15 says, he is the firstborn over all creation. And many, in our opinion, misinterpret this to mean that he is the first created being. We don't believe that to be true. We believe that, Jesus is God. He is God eternal, the first and the beginning, the first and the last, the Alpha and the Omega. And that Jesus being the firstborn, in that he is the one who was to inherit, the creation, to inherit everything. When he died on the cross, the Father gave him full inheritance, pretty much. And so in a interesting way, Jesus was both the covering, but also he died as the firstborn.
Right. Well, that actually brings up a really, really interesting point I don't think we addressed very well.
Okay.
Is the lamb they had to pick had to be a firstborn lamb.
Oh, that's right.
It does, yeah. So in chapter, I'm going to go back and give you the exact verse so you can back me up on this.
Yeah, back up. Up. Tell me what you're going to do.
So, is...
Looking at the laptop.
Must be year-old males that defect. Okay, never mind. I lied. Just kidding.
Okay, year-old males.
Dang it! I was about to make a really great parallel there. Oh well. My guess is, but that's something to take into account. Is like when the angel of death came by and he said, "Someone has already died in this household."
Yeah.
And then.
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it.
Right. It's like something has already died. We used that blood as a covering for us, and if something hasn't died yet, the angel is like, "Well, I'm going to go pick one."
Yep. Something's got to pay.
Right.
Yeah.
Something has to pay for the sin,
Yep.
and it's, and I think when we finally realize the weight of our sin, the idea of someone having to pay, there having to be justice to be done on behalf of our sin doesn't seem weird, honestly.
Yeah.
Like it sounds weird, like unless you have a really big grasp of like your own sin, how much you've hurt God, how much you've hurt other people,
Yeah.
how much you've hurt yourself, even.
Yeah. And how much of justice that's deserving.
Right.
We think like, oh, only the really big bad stuff deserves justice. But no, in many ways, there are a lot of people that hurt other people, and those other people have to go to, therapy or, receive counsel because they are having a hard time getting over the sins that people have committed to them,
Or even worse, they'll take sins that people committed. Like, for instance, a really good example is like the weird phenomenon in American school shooters.
Yeah.
Like, it's horrible. Like, these things that these kids will do, they'll bust in and they'll murder people. But a commonality you'll see, and I'm not full on right now just saying I'm not victim blaming. I'm not on the side of the school shooters because they still must face retribution, judgment for what they've done.
Absolutely.
But it's always as a response to wrongs committed to them or perceived wrongs committed to them.
Yes.
Like that our brain handles, when people sin against us, our brain handles it in a different way, and that often can lead to more sin.
Yes.
And often does, almost without fail. Like
it's proven that the bully in the school has been bullied at home or been bullied before.
I know. And then their bully
Yep.
had been bullied. And then, so like if, you have a bully at school, but it turns out he's getting abused by his dad probably was abused as a child or bullied as a child, and then takes it out on his kid, who then takes it out on another kid.
Yeah.
It just continues.
Yep.
Because we're broken and we need Jesus. We need real goodness, because the will of God is that, that we love each other, and the will of us is that we feel better.
Yeah.
And by whatever means necessary, even if that means that we have to kick someone down to get it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Well, is there anything else we need to cover?
I don't know. I think we about covered it. I think we're good.
I think so too.
Yeah. So cool. Well, I mean, thanks for sticking around and listening. I know it's been a while, but hopefully we'll kind of get back onto a schedule here.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
when I get back from from England,
Yeah,
wow, that's
have fun with that.
I'm just a lot of beer, and I really don't want to have to eat sheep stomach or whatever crap they eat in Britain. I don't know. I know that was the one thing about going to Mexico on a business trip is the food was primo. It was so good. Oh, it was amazing.
Primo.
Primo. Except that's Italian again. Am I Italian?
Anyway, this has been The Bible is Metal.
All right.
I am Levi Gonzalez.
I am Ben Stewart. Thank you so much for listening.
And we'll see you next time.